The gallery lights were blinding, almost as bright as the champagne flutes catching the glow of crystal chandeliers overhead. I stood in the center of the Laurent Gallery, one of the most prestigious contemporary art venues in New York, watching my mother's face crumble as she stared at the red, sold sticker beneath my painting. $23 million. The number seemed to float in the air between us, tangible as the tears now streaming down her carefully made up face. Jade, she whispered, her voice cracking. We didn't know. We didn't know you were this serious about my art? I finished for her, my voice perfectly calm. Or about succeeding without you. My father stood beside her, his usually commanding presence diminished. He looked smaller somehow, older. His hand trembled as he reached toward me, then dropped. We should have been here for your opening. We made a mistake. I let the silence stretch between us, feeling the weight of eyes on us from every corner of the gallery. Art critics, collectors, journalists, they'd all witnessed my parents' dramatic entrance 20 minutes ago, their shock at discovering their daughter's work plastered across the walls of one of the world's most elite galleries. They'd witnessed my cold acknowledgement, and now they were witnessing this. A mistake, I repeated softly. Is that what we're calling 18 years of neglect now? A mistake? But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand why this moment felt so sweet, why every tear my mother shed tasted like honey to me. You need to understand how I got here. More specifically, you need to understand that this was my second chance at this life. I died when I was 25. It wasn't dramatic or sudden. No car crash, no terminal illness discovered too late. I died the way I'd lived, slowly, quietly, unremarkably. Alone in my tiny studio apartment, having just been fired from my third retail job in 2 years. My art supplies gathered dust in the corner because I could never afford good materials. My portfolio sat incomplete because I'd never had the time, the energy, or the encouragement to finish it. The last thing I remembered from that life was staring at my phone, at the Facebook photos of my sister Scarlett's gallery opening. She'd become a renowned sculptor, celebrated for her raw emotional honesty and fearless vulnerability. What the art world didn't know was that half of her early concepts had been mine. Ideas I'd sketched in notebooks she'd borrowed and never returned. Ideas she'd claimed as her own while I was too beaten down to fight back. In the photos, my parents flanked her, glowing with pride. My mother wore the diamond necklace I'd noticed missing from her jewelry box years ago, the one she'd claimed was lost but had apparently been saved for special occasions. My father had his arm around Scarlett, beaming at the camera in a way I'd never seen directed at me. I'd sent them an invitation to a small group show I'd finally gotten into, my first ever gallery representation. They'd said they couldn't make it. Scarlett's opening was the same night, and obviously they had to support her major career milestone. My little group show could wait. It couldn't wait. I'd died 3 days later. A brain aneurysm, sudden and complete. I was found a week after that when the smell alerted neighbors. Then I woke up in my childhood bed, 13 years old again, gasping for air. The first few days were disorienting. I kept reaching for a phone with apps that didn't exist yet, kept expecting my adult body and finding gangly teenage limbs instead. But the memories were crystal clear. Every moment of neglect, every casual cruelty, every time I'd been made to feel less than my golden child sister. And this time, I knew exactly how it would play out if I let it. I was 13 in the summer of 2010. Scarlett was 15, already the family favorite. She'd just won a regional art competition with a sculpture she'd made in her expensive summer art intensive, the one my parents paid $5,000 for while telling me we couldn't afford the $200 community art class I'd begged to take. Scarlett has real talent, my mother had said, not even looking up from her magazine. She needs proper instruction. Your little drawings are just a hobby, Jade. It's not the same thing. In my first life, I'd believed her. I'd internalized that message so deeply that I'd stopped trying. I'd convinced myself that art was Scarlett's thing, that I needed to find something else, be someone else. I'd spent years drifting through community college, through dead-end jobs, through a life half-lived because I'd been told from the start that my dreams didn't matter. Not this time. This time, I understood something crucial. Scarlett wasn't more talented than me. She'd simply been given every opportunity while I'd been given none. She'd had expensive materials while I made do with cheap supplies. She'd had master classes and gallery connections while I'd had nothing but criticism and dismissal. And in the end, she'd literally stolen my ideas because her own well had run dry. The unfair advantage I had now was knowledge. I knew which art movements would dominate the next decade. I knew which galleries would become influential, which curators were looking for fresh voices. I knew which techniques would trend and which would fade. More importantly, I knew exactly how my family would try to hold me back, which meant I could plan around them. But revenge through foreknowledge alone would be hollow. I needed to actually become the artist I'd never gotten to be. I needed to work for it. That summer, I stopped asking permission. I took the money I'd been saving for a laptop. In my first life, I'd bought one that Scarlett immediately monopolized, and instead bought professional art supplies. When my mother asked about it, I lied smoothly. I'm using the school's computers for homework. They're better anyway. I signed up for online art courses using a friend's older sister's college email. I watched every tutorial I could find, filled sketchbook after sketchbook. While Scarlett was at her intensive learning the basics from instructors, I was teaching myself advanced techniques, pushing myself harder than any class would have. At dinner, when my parents gushed about Scarlett's progress, I said nothing. I ate quietly, excused myself politely, and went back to my room to draw. Jade's been so withdrawn lately, I heard my mother tell my father one night through the wall. Do you think we should talk to her? She's probably just going through a phase, my father replied. Teenage hormones. She'll grow out of it. They never talked to me, and I was glad. By the time freshman year started, I had a secret portfolio of over 100 pieces. I'd developed a style that blended classical techniques with digital elements, something I knew would be huge in the coming years. I'd started an anonymous art blog that was slowly gaining followers, and I'd learned the most important lesson. My family's opinion of my art meant nothing. The first major test came during sophomore year. Scarlett was 17 and had decided to apply to prestigious art schools. My parents hired an expensive portfolio consultant, rented a professional photography studio for her work, and spent thousands on application fees and prep courses. I was 15 and announced at dinner that I wanted to apply to a summer program at the Rhode Island School of Design. The silence was deafening. RISD? My mother finally said, her fork frozen halfway to her mouth. Jade, honey, that's a very competitive program. Are you sure you're ready for something like that? I think so, I said calmly. I've been working on my portfolio. What portfolio? Scarlett laughed. You mean those doodles you do in your room? I didn't take the bait. In my first life, I would have gotten defensive, would have tried to prove myself. Now I just smiled slightly. I'll show you when it's finished. The program costs money, my father said, already shaking his head. We're stretched thin with Scarlett's applications. I'll pay for it myself, I interrupted. I've been saving babysitting money. I just need you to sign the permission form since I'm not 18 yet. They exchanged glances. I could see the calculation happening. If they refused outright, they'd look like bad parents. But they clearly didn't take my application seriously. Well, my mother said slowly. If you can handle the application yourself, I suppose we can sign the forms. But don't be disappointed if you don't get in, sweetie. These programs are very selective, and you don't have Scarlett's training. I understand, I said. What they didn't know was that I'd been building relationships online. I'd connected with working artists, gotten feedback, refined my skills. I'd studied the program's past acceptances, and tailored my portfolio to exactly what they were looking for. I'd written and rewritten my essays until they shone. 3 months later, both acceptance letters came on the same day. Scarlett got into her program, a good one, but not her first choice. I got into RISD with a partial scholarship. I'll never forget the look on my mother's face when she opened my letter. The confusion, quickly masked. Well, that's wonderful, Jade. Congratulations. How did you get a scholarship? Scarlett demanded. Those are supposed to be really competitive. They are, I agreed. I guess my portfolio is strong enough. Can we see it? My father asked, actually sounding interested for the first time. Maybe later, I said, taking my letter back carefully. I need to finish packing for the program. Wait, my mother said, her voice sharpening. Jade, about the program. We've been talking and we're not sure it's the best use of your summer. You're so young, and Providence is far from home. Maybe you should wait a few years, get a summer job instead, save money for college. And there it was. The moment they realized I might actually be serious about art, that I might actually be good at it. The moment they started to feel threatened. In my first life, I'd caved. I'd let them talk me out of it, convinced me I was being impractical. I'd gotten a summer job at a mall instead, watching my dreams defer and defer until they disappeared. I'm going, I said firmly. I already accepted, and I don't need your money. The scholarship covers most of it, and I have my savings. Jade Marie Chen, you will not speak to your mother that way, my father started. I wasn't being disrespectful, I interrupted, keeping my voice level. I was stating facts. I'm going to this program. You can support me or not, but either way, I'm going. I walked out of the room before they could respond, my heart pounding, but I'd learned something crucial in my past life. They could only control me if I let them. The RISD program changed everything. For 6 weeks, I was surrounded by people who took art seriously. Instructors who pushed me, peers who inspired me, visiting artists who treated us like colleagues rather than children. I produced some of the best work of my young life. I made connections with other artists, with a gallery owner who attended our final show, with a mentor who would become crucial to my future. Most importantly, I came home knowing I was a real artist. Not because my family said so, but because I'd proven it to myself and to people whose opinions actually mattered in the art world. Scarlett barely spoke to me that fall. My parents were polite but distant, as if they weren't quite sure what to do with this new version of me. That was fine. I was busy anyway. Junior year, I started entering competitions. Small ones at first, local and regional shows. I won some, placed in others. Each award, each recognition, I brought home without fanfare. I'd leave the certificate on the kitchen counter, let them find it themselves. My mother would pin them to the fridge with less enthusiasm than she showed for Scarlett's test scores. The shift in dynamic was subtle but real. At family gatherings, relatives would ask Scarlett about her art, then almost as an afterthought turn to me. Oh, and Jade, are you still doing your little art thing too? Yes, I'd say simply. I never elaborated. I learned that there was power in mystery, in not seeking their validation. Senior year was when things accelerated. I'd been planning for this. I knew that in my first life, Scarlett had applied to Yale, gotten in, and eventually leveraged those connections into her art career. I also knew that Yale's art program, while prestigious, wasn't actually the best fit for her style. She'd struggled there, had needed my ideas to supplement her own work. This time, I applied to Yale too. But I also applied to Columbia, to CalArts, to schools with strong contemporary art programs and better gallery pipelines. Scarlett was confident about Yale. She'd attended a summer program there, had connections. It's basically a sure thing, she told her friends at dinner one night while I sat silently eating. The admissions counselor said my portfolio was exactly what they're looking for. I said nothing. I knew something she didn't. Yale was moving toward conceptual minimalism that year. Scarlett's dramatic, emotion-heavy work was out of step. My clean, technically precise pieces with subtle conceptual layers were exactly what they wanted. March came. Decision letters. Scarlett opened hers first, standing in the kitchen with our parents hovering. I watched from the doorway, invisible as always. Waitlisted, she read, her voice hollow. They waitlisted me. My mother gasped. That's impossible. You were perfect for them. They said, let me see that, my father demanded, taking the letter. This doesn't make sense. We'll call them. We'll fix this. Scarlett's eyes met mine across the room. Did you apply to Yale? Yes, I said. You? She laughed, but it sounded desperate. You applied to my school? It's not your school, I said mildly. It's just a school. My letter had come that morning. I'd hidden it, waiting for this moment. Now I took it from my bag, still sealed. I opened it carefully while they watched. Accepted, I read aloud, with a full ride scholarship for artistic merit. The silence was absolute. Then my mother's face did something strange. It arranged itself into a smile, but her eyes remained cold. Well, that's unexpected. Congratulations, Jade. How? Scarlett whispered. How did you get in when I didn't? I could have been kind. In my first life, I would have downplayed it, would have comforted her. But I remembered how she'd laughed at my doodles, how she'd stolen my ideas without a second thought, how she'd stood by while our parents dismissed everything I cared about. My portfolio must have been stronger, I said simply. My father's face had gone red. Now wait just a minute. Scarlett has been training seriously for years. She's won awards, had shows. So have I interrupted. You just never paid attention. Don't you dare speak to your father that way, my mother snapped, the mask dropping. After everything we've sacrificed for you. What have you sacrificed for me? I asked, genuinely curious. Can you name one thing? They couldn't. We all knew they couldn't. You know what? I said, folding my acceptance letter carefully. I'm going to call Columbia now. They offered me a spot too, and their contemporary art connections are actually better for what I want to do. You'd turn down Yale? Scarlett looked stunned. Why not? I shrugged. It's just a name. I'm going where I'll be happiest and most successful. I left them standing in the kitchen and went to my room. Through the door, I heard Scarlett burst into tears, heard my mother comforting her, heard my father making angry phone calls to Yale admissions. I felt nothing but calm. Columbia was perfect. The city gave me access to galleries, to working artists, to a thriving contemporary art scene. I took every opportunity, networked relentlessly, worked 18-hour days perfecting my craft. I had something most of my peers didn't. The maturity of someone who'd already lived through their 20s, who understood that talent without strategy was useless. By sophomore year, I had my first gallery representation, a small but respected space in Chelsea. By junior year, I was selling pieces for 5 figures. By senior year, I was a rising name in the contemporary art world. And my family? They'd stopped coming to my shows after the first one freshman year. I'd invited them, of course, sent them a formal invitation to my first group exhibition. They'd RSVP'd, yes, seemed excited even. We'll all come support you, my mother had said on the phone. Scarlett can drive down with us. It'll be a family trip. The night of the opening, I waited. I wore my best dress, positioned myself near the door. My pieces were strong. I knew they were. I wanted them to see what they'd dismissed, what they'd tried to crush. They never showed. At 9 p.m., when the gallery was closing, I called my mother. Oh, Jade, I'm so sorry. She didn't sound sorry. Scarlett had an emergency with her senior thesis. We had to stay and help her. You understand, right? There will be other shows. In the background, I could hear laughter, the TV. No emergency, just Scarlett not wanting them to see me succeed. Sure, I said. Other shows. I hung up, and I made a decision. They wanted to skip my shows? Fine. I'd stop inviting them. Over the next 3 years, I had dozens of exhibitions. I won awards. I got written up in art magazines. My Instagram following grew to hundreds of thousands. Gallery owners and collectors fought to represent me. I did residencies in Berlin, Tokyo, Mexico City. I didn't tell my family about any of it. When they asked what I was up to, I was vague. Oh, school, art stuff. I posted nothing on my personal Facebook where they could see. I kept my professional life completely separate from my family. You're so private now, my mother complained during one awkward phone call. We never know what's going on with you. You never asked before, Bez, I pointed out. Why start now? Meanwhile, Scarlett was struggling. She'd gotten off the Yale waitlist eventually, but she'd never quite found her footing there. Her work was considered derivative, technically skilled but lacking originality. She graduated with decent grades but no buzz, no gallery interest. She'd reached out to me once asking to collaborate on a project. I remembered that in my first life I'd said yes. She'd taken the core concept we'd developed together and presented it as solely her own work. It had launched her career. I don't think so, I'd told her this time. I work alone. Since when? She'd laugh nervously. We used to share everything. No, I corrected. Basama. You used to take everything. There's a difference. After graduation, I moved to Brooklyn and took over a huge loft space in Bushwick before the neighborhood got too expensive. Another advantage of foreknowledge. I converted it into a live work studio, spent my days creating and my nights networking. The art world can be brutal, but I navigated it with the confidence of someone who'd already failed once. I knew which critics to court, which gallery owners were genuine, which opportunities were worth pursuing. I knew that in 3 years, digital integration would become huge in contemporary art, so I built those skills now. I knew which collectors were looking for emerging talent, which museums were building contemporary collections, and I worked. God, I worked. Every piece was intentional, technically flawless, conceptually layered. I developed a signature style that blended hyper-realistic portraiture with fragmented digital elements, a commentary on identity in the internet age that I knew would resonate. By age 25, the age I died in my first life, I was represented by one of the top galleries in New York. I'd had a solo show at a significant museum. My work sold for six figures regularly. I was everything I'd never gotten to be. And my family had no idea. They thought I was a struggling artist, barely making rent. They thought I was still trying to make it. The few times I'd seen them over the years, obligatory holidays, my grandmother's funeral, they'd patted my hand sympathetically and told me it was okay if art didn't work out, that there was no shame in getting a real job. Scarlett's working at a gallery now, my mother told me at Christmas that year, her voice bright. It's not what she hoped for, but at least she's in the art world. Maybe they can give you a job too. I'm sure she'd put in a good word. I'm fine, I said. Are you still doing art? My father asked, as if it were a hobby I might have outgrown. Yes. Anything sold recently? Scarlett asked, an edge of condescension in her voice. A few pieces, I said vaguely. What I didn't tell them, last month a piece had sold at auction for $180,000. I'd been written up in Art Forum. I had a waiting list of collectors wanting to commission work. I watched Scarlett exchange glances with our parents, saw the pity in their eyes. They thought I was delusional, holding on to impossible dreams. Let them think it. The Laurent Gallery opportunity came the following spring. Marcus Laurent was legendary, a kingmaker in the contemporary art world. Getting a solo show in his gallery was a career milestone that most artists dreamed of. He'd discovered some of the biggest names of the last decade. He'd been following my work for 2 years, buying pieces privately, watching my trajectory. When he finally called to offer me a solo show, not a group exhibition, a full solo show, I actually had to sit down. Your work is exactly what we need right now, he said. You're saying something about identity, about fragmentation, about the digital age, but you're doing it with such technical skill that even traditional collectors can't dismiss it. You're going to be huge, Jade. Let me help make that happen. We planned the show for 9 months out. I created new work specifically for it, my most ambitious pieces yet. Large-scale portraits fractured across multiple canvases, each fragment containing thousands of tiny digital details that only revealed themselves up close. Pieces that looked classical from far away but dissolved into pixels and code when you approached. Pieces about wearing masks, about curated selves, about the gap between how we're seen and who we are. Every painting was personal. Every painting was about being invisible in my own family, about being dismissed and overlooked, about the careful construction of a self strong enough to survive it all. The show was titled Refraction. It was scheduled for April 14th, exactly 12 years to the day from when I'd been reborn. 3 months before the opening, my mother called. Jade, honey, we've been thinking. Her voice had that artificially sweet tone that meant she wanted something. We haven't been very involved in your life lately. We want to change that. Can we come visit? See your place? See what you've been working on? My first instinct was suspicion. Why now? Because you're our daughter. We love you. Is it so strange that we want to see you? Yes, I thought. After years of disinterest, it was very strange. I'm pretty busy right now, I said. Maybe in a few months? That's what you always say. She sighed dramatically. You've become so distant. We just want to be part of your life. Something in her voice made me wonder. Did Scarlett tell you to call? A pause. Scarlett mentioned that you'd been posting some things online, professional accounts. She thought we should reconnect. There it was. Scarlett had found my professional social media. She'd seen the gallery announcements, the collector tags, the buzz building around my upcoming show. And suddenly, after years of indifference, my family wanted back in. I'll think about it, I said and hung up. Part of me, the part that still remembered being that desperate 13-year-old seeking approval, wanted to invite them. Wanted to show them what I'd become despite them. But the wiser part, the part that had lived through this twice now, knew better. They didn't want to support me. They wanted to be part of my success now that it was undeniable. They wanted to claim credit, to bask in reflected glory, to tell their friends about their talented daughter, the same daughter they'd ignored for years. I made a decision. I sent them an invitation to the opening, a formal one, beautifully printed, arriving 8 weeks before the show. The same kind of invitation I'd sent years ago to that first college exhibition they'd skipped. I included a personal note. Dear Mom, Dad, and Scarlett, I'm having a solo exhibition at the Laurent Gallery in New York. I'd love for you to attend. This is an important milestone in my career. I hope you can make it this time. Love, Jade. That last line, this time, was deliberate. A reminder, a test. They called immediately. The Laurent Gallery? My mother gasped. Jade, that's incredible. Of course we'll be there. We wouldn't miss it for the world. Congratulations, Jade, my father said, actually sounding genuine. This is a big deal. We're very proud of you. Scarlett was quieter. I've been following your work online, she admitted. You've gotten really good. Better than I realized. Thank you, I said, keeping my voice neutral. We should talk before the show, Scarlett continued. I have some thoughts on your pieces, some suggestions that might help them land better with collectors. I've been working in the gallery scene for a while now. I know what buyers are looking for. I appreciate that, I interrupted, but my gallery handles that side of things. Still, family should support family. Maybe we could collaborate on something? Co-create a piece for the show? It would be good press, sister artists working together. And there it was. She wanted to attach herself to my success, just like she'd done in my first life. The show is already finalized, I said firmly, but thanks for the offer. After we hung up, I sat in my studio and stared at my paintings. These pieces were mine, born from my pain, my resilience, my solitary journey. They represented everything I'd built alone, despite my family rather than because of them. And I realized I didn't want them there, not out of pure spite, though I won't pretend that wasn't part of it, but because their presence would contaminate something I'd created in their absence. They represented the old Jade, the one who needed their approval. This show was for the new Jade, the Jade, the one who'd learned to approve of herself. So I did something calculated. 2 weeks before the opening, I called my mother. I've been thinking, I said carefully, and I want to be honest with you. This show is really important to me, career-defining, and I'm worried about having family there. I'm already nervous, and I think I'd feel more comfortable if I could just focus on the professional side of things. Would you mind if we celebrated privately afterward instead? Maybe a nice dinner, just a family? I could hear the relief in her voice, hidden under false disappointment. Oh, honey, if that's what you need, we understand. The art world can be intimidating. We don't want to add to your stress. Thank you for understanding, I said. We can come to the gallery the next day and see everything privately, she suggested. After the pressure is off, that might be nicer anyway. That sounds perfect, I lied. I knew them too well. They were relieved to have an excuse not to come. The opening would be crowded, full of important people they didn't know. They'd have to stand around looking at art they didn't understand, making small talk with collectors and critics. Much easier to skip it with my blessing, then visit later when they could have my full attention and maybe even get a tour like VIPs. Scarlett called separately. Mom said you don't want us at the opening. Are you sure? I really think I could help introduce you to some people. Network for you. I'm sure, I said. But I really appreciate the support. Okay, she said, but she sounded relieved too. Maybe this is for the best. I just got offered an assistant curator position starting that same week. I was stressed about taking time off so soon. This way I can focus on my new job. That's great, I said. Congratulations. We hung up, both satisfied. They thought they were doing me a favor by staying away. They had no idea I'd manipulated them into exactly what I wanted. The night before the opening, Marcus called me into the gallery for final walkthrough. The space was transformed. My pieces hung on pristine white walls, perfectly lit, each one commanding attention. The largest piece, a massive triptych titled Invisible, dominated the main gallery. It showed a young woman's face, fractured across 3 8-foot canvases, each fragment dissolving into smaller and smaller pieces until she seemed to disappear into static. It's powerful, Marcus said quietly. They're all powerful, but this one... He gestured at the triptych. This one is going to make your career. It's personal, I admitted. The best work always is. He turned to me. I have to tell you, the pre-sale interest is unlike anything I've seen for an emerging artist. We've already had offers on multiple pieces. Some collectors are talking about bidding wars. Really? My heart started racing. Really? There's one buyer in particular, a major collector, very influential. He wants the triptych. He's prepared to pay 7 figures for it. 7 figures. $1 million or more. For one piece. For my piece. Jade. Marcus put his hand on my shoulder. After tomorrow night, your life is going to change. I hope you're ready. I looked at my paintings, these pieces of my soul made visible, and thought about the girl I'd been in my first life. The one who'd died alone and forgotten, who'd never gotten this chance. I'm ready, I said. The opening was magical. The gallery filled with people, collectors, critics, other artists, journalists. I wore a simple black dress and moved through the crowd in a daze, accepting compliments, discussing my work, watching people truly see what I'd created. A New York Times critic spent 20 minutes in front of Invisible, then came to find me. This is extraordinary work, he said. You're saying something important about contemporary isolation? About the performative self. I'd love to interview you for a feature. A curator from the Whitney pulled me aside. We're planning an exhibition on digital identity next year. I think your work would be perfect. Can we talk? Collectors circled like sharks, elegant and predatory. Is the triptych still available? What's your wait list like? Do you do commissions? Marcus was in his element, working the room, making introductions, building buzz. He caught my eye across the gallery and grinned. This was what he did. He created stars. By 9 p.m., red "sold" stickers dotted the walls like bullet holes. Nearly every piece had been purchased. The triptych had gone for $2.3 million, a record for a living artist my age. I stood in the center of the gallery, champagne in hand, and let myself feel it. Not just the success, but the vindication. I'd done this, me, alone, despite everything. My phone buzzed, a text from my mother. How did the opening go? Can't wait to hear all about it. I didn't respond. Let her wonder. The next morning, I woke to my phone exploding with notifications. The New York Times had run a feature on the opening. Jade Chen's refraction marks the arrival of a major new voice in contemporary art. The article included photos of the sold-out show, details about the record-breaking sales, quotes from collectors and critics. It had been shared thousands of times. My Instagram had gained 50,000 followers overnight. My email was full of interview requests, gallery inquiries, collector interest. I lay in bed, scrolling through it all, feeling surreal. Then I saw my mother's Facebook post. So proud of my daughter, Jade. Her art show was a huge success last night. She's always been so talented, ever since she was little. We always knew she'd make it big. Proud mom, #artist mom, #my talented daughter. She'd shared the New York Times article. The comments were full of congratulations, friends saying how lucky I was to have such supportive parents. I stared at it, feeling my jaw clench. They hadn't been there. They'd never supported my art, and now they were taking credit publicly, performing Pride for social media while having done nothing to earn it. My phone rang. Marcus. Have you seen the news coverage? He sounded gleeful. Jade, this is bigger than I expected. CNN wants to do a segment. The Today Show is interested. We're going to need to plan your next show immediately while the momentum is hot. Marcus, I said slowly, what if I told you we could generate even more press? I'm listening. What if my family showed up today to see the show for the first time, after missing the opening? What if there were photographers there to capture their reaction when they realized what they'd missed? There was a pause. Then Marcus laughed, low and delighted. You're diabolical. I like it. What do you need from me? We planned it carefully. I called my mother. Hey, the show is still up if you want to come see it today. Maybe around 2 p.m.? Oh, wonderful. She sounded so pleased with herself. We'll all come. Make a family afternoon of it. Perfect, I said. See you then. Then Marcus made some calls. By 1:45 p.m., there were 3 photographers positioned discreetly around the gallery. One from the Times, one from ArtNet, one from a major art blog. A journalist from Art News was there too, doing a follow-up piece. And then Marcus did something brilliant. He called some of the major collectors who'd bought pieces, invited them to come back and view their purchases one more time before they were shipped. The gallery filled with New York's art elite, wealthy collectors, influential curators, other successful artists. At 2 p.m. exactly, my family walked in. I watched from the back of the gallery. My mother wore her nice clothes, a department store dress that probably cost a tenth of what the woman next to her was wearing. My father looked uncomfortable in a sport coat. Scarlett wore all black, trying to look artsy, but her eyes were already scanning the room, cataloging the expensive clothes and jewelry, the obvious wealth. They stopped just inside the door, taking in the space. The high ceilings, the perfect lighting, the small crowd of obviously important people. This wasn't the intimate viewing they'd expected. My mother spotted the price list first. I saw her pick it up, saw her eyes go wide. These prices, she whispered to my father, loud enough for the nearby photographer to catch. These can't be right. Scarlett took the list, read it, went pale. They're all sold, she said faintly. Everything is sold. They moved deeper into the gallery, seeing the red stickers, the elegantly dressed people discussing my work in hushed, reverent tones. They saw the journalists with their cameras. They saw Marcus holding court with a group of collectors, and then they saw the triptych. Invisible, the massive. Piece dominated the space, impossible to miss. My fragmented face, dissolving into nothing, stared down at them. My mother's hand went to her mouth. The placard next to it read, Sold, $2.3 million, private collection. 2.3. My father couldn't finish the sentence. That's when they saw me. I stood near Marcus, talking with a curator from MoMA. I looked comfortable, confident, at home in this world of art and money and influence. I looked like I belonged. I looked like someone they didn't know. My mother started toward me, but Marcus smoothly intercepted. You must be Jade's family. How wonderful that you could make it. His voice was warm, but his eyes were cool. I'm Marcus Laurent. I own the gallery. We're so proud of her, my mother said automatically, her voice too loud. We always knew she was talented. Did you? Marcus's smile didn't waver. How interesting. Jade told me you'd never seen her work before today. She said you missed her opening last night. The photographer's camera clicked softly. We had a conflict, my father stammered. But we would have been here if we could. Family is the most important thing. Of course, Marcus said pleasantly. Though I must say, she seems to have done quite well without you here. Record-breaking sales for an artist her age, museum interest, international attention, all on her own merit. Scarlett found her voice. I'm an artist too. I went to Yale. How nice for you, Marcus said, dismissing her completely. If you'll excuse me, I need to attend to our collectors. Do enjoy the show. He walked away, leaving them standing there. The journalist approached, introducing herself. I'm writing a follow-up piece on Jade's incredible debut. As her family, could I get your reaction to her success? My mother's face did something complicated, trying to arrange itself into pride while processing shock. We're thrilled, of course. We always encouraged her art. Is that true, Jade? The journalist called to me. Every eye in the gallery turned. The moment hung suspended. I walked over slowly, taking my time. When I reached them, I looked at my mother's expectant face, my father's forced smile, Scarlett's barely concealed envy. No, I said clearly, that's not true. My mother's smile froze. Jade, they told me my art was just a hobby, I continued, my voice calm and factual. Then they spent thousands on my sister's art education while telling me we couldn't afford a $200 class for me. They missed my first gallery show in college. They never asked to see my work. Until yesterday, they thought I was a struggling artist barely making rent. The journalist was writing quickly. The photographer's camera clicked. That's not fair, Scarlett said. We just didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked, I interrupted. You weren't interested when you thought I was failing. You're only here now because you saw the press coverage. We're your family, my father said, his face reddening. You can't speak to us like this. I can, actually. I felt surprisingly calm. Because this is my gallery show, in my gallery, celebrating my work that I created alone. You have no power here. My mother's eyes filled with tears. How can you be so cruel after everything we've done for you? What have you done for me? I asked. And specifically, name one thing you sacrificed for my art career. Silence. You can't, can you? Because you didn't sacrifice anything. You saved all your support for Scarlett. You dismissed my dreams. You made me feel worthless and talentless. So I made myself successful without you. We made mistakes, my mother whispered. But we're here now. We want to make things right. You're here because my work sells for millions now, I corrected. Not because you believe in me. You want to be part of the success story. You want to tell people about your talented daughter. You already started. I saw your Facebook post. She flinched. But you don't get to claim this, I continued. This success is mine. I earned it despite you, not because of you. Jade, Scarlett's voice was pleading. We're sisters. We used to be close. Can't we move past this? I looked at her, really looked at her. In another life, she'd stolen my ideas and built her career on them. In this life, she'd tried to do the same thing. But I'd been smart enough to stop her. We were never close, I said. You just took what you wanted from me and called it sharing. I turned to the journalist, Oskis. To answer your question, my family didn't encourage my art. They actively discouraged it. Everything you see in this gallery exists because I decided their opinion didn't matter. I succeeded not because of my family, but in spite of them. The journalist finished writing and looked up with obvious satisfaction. This was a better story than she'd expected. Not just artistic success, but triumph over family adversity. Marcus appeared at my elbow. Jade, the collector wants to speak with you about the commission we discussed. Of course, I turned to my family one last time. Feel free to look around, but everything's already sold and I don't do family discounts. I walked away with Marcus, leaving them standing in the center of the gallery. Behind me, I heard my mother start to cry. The photographer's camera kept clicking. The next week was a whirlwind. The art news piece ran with the headline, Rising Star Jade Chen on Overcoming Family Doubt. I succeeded despite them, not because of them. It included photos of my family's shocked faces at the gallery, quotes from my interview, and a detailed analysis of how my work dealt with themes of invisibility and familial rejection. The story went viral. Suddenly, I wasn't just a talented emerging artist, I was an inspirational figure. People shared their own stories of unsupportive families, of having to prove themselves alone. My Instagram was flooded, with messages from young artists thanking me for speaking out. The exposure led to more opportunities. Magazine covers, speaking engagements, a book deal for a collection of my work, museum shows, international gallery interest. 6 months after that opening, I had my second solo show in London. It sold out before it even opened. The pieces went for even higher prices. The centerpiece painting went for $4.5 million. A year later, I was invited to create an installation for the Venice Biennale. I was the youngest American artist selected that year. My family tried to reach out multiple times. My mother sent long emails about misunderstandings, about how they'd always loved me, about wanting to repair our relationship. Each email mentioned my success, my money, my influence. My father called wanting to discuss my financial planning. He thought I needed help managing my sudden wealth. He had some investment ideas. Scarlett sent a Instagram DM asking if I'd mentor her, help her get represented by my gallery. "We're both artists," she wrote. "We should support each other." I ignored them all, not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. They wanted access to my success, not a relationship with me. They wanted to benefit from the career they'd tried to prevent. They wanted to rewrite history, to pretend they had been supportive all along. I wouldn't let them. My grandmother, my father's mother, reached out separately. She was the only one who'd ever been kind to me, who'd slipped me money for art supplies when I was young. "I saw what happened," she wrote. "I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. I'm sorry I didn't do more to protect you from them when you were younger." We started having lunch regularly. She was the only family I kept. 2 years after my debut show, I bought a brownstone in Brooklyn. It was beautiful, historic, expensive. The kind of place I could never have afforded in my first life. I filled it with art, with light, with joy. I hosted salons for other artists, created a studio in the top floor, built the life I'd always dreamed of. I was 28 now, 3 years older than when I died in my first life. Everything was different. One evening, my grandmother came to dinner. We sat in my garden, drinking wine, watching the sunset. "Your parents are struggling," she said carefully. "Your father made some bad investments. They're having money trouble." "I see," I said neutrally. "They're hoping you might help. They're family, after all." I swirled my wine. "They didn't help me when I needed it. When I was young and trying to pursue my dreams. They actively worked against me." "I know, she said. "And I'm not telling you that you should help them. I'm just telling you the situation." "What would you do?" I asked her. She smiled. "I think you've already made your choice. And I think it's the right one. You don't owe them your success. You don't owe them anything." We sat in comfortable silence. "Ardis, you happy?" she asked eventually. I thought about it, really thought about it. In my first life, I died miserable and alone, full of regrets. I'd spent my whole life seeking approval I would never receive, sacrificing my dreams for people who didn't care. In this life, I'd built everything myself. I'd learned to value my own opinion above theirs. I'd created art that mattered, that moved people, that would outlive me. I'd found success on my own terms. I had friends who understood me, colleagues who respected me, a career that fulfilled me. I had enough money to never worry again. I had a beautiful home, a life of my own choosing, and I'd done it all without them. "Yes," I said. "I'm happy." "Good," my grandmother said. "That's all that matters." My phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Just got confirmation. Your retrospective at the Guggenheim is approved for next year. You'll be the youngest living artist they've ever given a solo show. Congratulations." I stared at the message, feeling the weight of it. The Guggenheim. At 28. The kind of recognition most artists never achieved in their entire lives. I thought about my parents, struggling with money troubles. I thought about Scarlett, still trying to make it as an artist, still living in our parents' shadow. I thought about how in my first life, I'd been the one struggling while they succeeded. The reversal was complete. But here's what I'd learned. Revenge wasn't about them suffering. It was about me thriving. It was about building a life so successful, so fulfilling, that their opinion became irrelevant. It was about proving, not to them, but to myself, that I never needed them in the first place. I texted Marcus back. "Thank you, this means everything." Then I put my phone away and poured more wine. My grandmother raised her glass to you, Jade, for becoming exactly who you were meant to be. To second chances, I said, clinking my glass against hers. We drank as the sun set over Brooklyn, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Somewhere across the city, my family was together, probably talking about me, probably discussing how to get me to help them, to forgive them, to let them back into my life. Let them talk. I had art to make, shows to plan, a legacy to build. I had a life of my own creation, free from their judgment and dismissal. I had won. Not because they were suffering, though I won't pretend that didn't bring a certain satisfaction, but because I had refused to let their neglect define me, because I'd taken the pain of invisibility and transformed it into art that made people see, because I'd survived them, transcended them, and built something beautiful from the ashes of their rejection. 3 months later, my mother showed up at my brownstone unannounced. I saw her through the window, standing on my stoop, looking small and tired. She'd aged since I'd seen her last. Her hair had more gray, her face more lines. I considered not, answering. But curiosity got the better of me. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Jade," she said, her voice cracking, "please, we need to talk." "We don't need to do anything," I said calmly. 5 minutes, please." I sighed. "Fine, 5 minutes." We stood in my entryway. I didn't offer her a seat, didn't offer coffee. I just waited. "I know we failed you," she said, the words tumbling out. "I know we were terrible parents to you. I know we favored Scarlett. I know we dismissed your dreams and made you feel worthless. I know all of that." "Good," I said, "and at least you're finally honest about it." "But we're family," she continued. "We made mistakes, but we're still your parents. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It means you had 18 years to be better," I said. "It means you had countless chances to support me, to believe in me, to treat me with basic respect. You chose not to, so no. Being family doesn't mean anything anymore." "We need help," she admitted, tears starting. "We're in trouble financially. Your father's business failed. We might lose the house. And Scarlett, she's struggling so much. She looks at your success and it's killing her. She won't eat, won't leave her room." "Stop," I interrupted. "You're not here because you love me or because you're sorry. You're here because you want money. You want me to save you from consequences of your own actions." "We're desperate." "I was desperate," I cut her off, my voice harder now. "I was desperate for your love, for your support, for even a moment of your attention, and you gave me nothing. So now that you're desperate, why should I treat you any differently than you treated me?" She was fully crying now. "Please, Jade, I'm begging you, help us. We're your family." I felt nothing but a distant, cold satisfaction. In my first life, this moment would have destroyed me. I would have been desperate to help, to prove my worth, to finally earn their love. But I'd lived through that already. I knew now that their love was conditional, that it could only be earned through success and money, that it wasn't really love at all. "No," I said simply. "You've become so cold," she whispered. "So cruel." "I've become someone who values herself," I corrected. "Someone who doesn't need your approval, someone who succeeded without you and doesn't need you now." "You'll regret this," she said, a flash of anger breaking through the tears. "When we're gone, when you have no family left, you'll regret being so heartless." "Maybe," I said. "But I'll still have my art, my success, my life that I built with my own hands." "What will you have?" She had no answer. "Your 5 minutes are up," I said. Don't come back." I closed the door in her face. Through the window, I watched her stand there for a long moment, shoulders shaking. Then she turned and walked away, disappearing into the Brooklyn afternoon. I went back to my studio and painted for 6 hours straight. The Guggenheim retrospective was titled Emergence. It chronicled my journey from invisibility to recognition, from dismissed to celebrated. Every piece told a story about identity, about being overlooked, about the careful construction of self-worth in the absence of external validation. The centerpiece was a new installation, a room of mirrors, fractured and reassembled, reflecting the viewer in hundreds of fragmented pieces. As you moved through the space, the reflections came together slowly, creating a full image only at the very end, a metaphor for how we piece ourselves together from broken parts. I called it self-made. The opening was extraordinary. Celebrities, collectors, critics, museum directors. The mayor came. An Oscar-winning actress bought 3 pieces. The president of MoMA told me I was the voice of my generation. I stood in my gallery of mirrors wearing a white dress, watching important people see themselves reflected and refracted, and I thought about the girl I'd been at 13, the one who'd been given a second chance and had used it to build this. My grandmother came, beaming with pride. "Your parents tried to get tickets," she told me. "They've been calling me, asking me to get them on the list." "I hope you didn't," I said. "Of course not," she laughed. "This is your night. You earned it." Toward the end of the evening, a young girl approached me. She couldn't have been more than 16, dressed in carefully thrifted clothes, holding a worn sketchbook. "Ms. Chen," she said nervously, I'm sorry to bother you, but I read your interview about your family not supporting your art, and I just wanted to say thank you. My parents don't believe in my art either. They say it's a waste of time. But reading about you, seeing all this, it made me think maybe I can do it anyway." I looked at this girl, saw myself at that age, and felt something crack in my chest. "You can," I told her. "You absolutely can. Don't wait for their permission. Don't wait for their approval. Start now. Work harder than everyone else. Believe in yourself enough for all of them." Her eyes filled with tears. "Really?" "Really." I took her sketchbook, wrote my email in it. "Send me your work. I'm serious. I want to see what you create." She left glowing, clutching her sketchbook like treasure. Marcus appeared at my elbow. "That was kind of you." "She reminded me of someone," I said. "You?" he asked. "The me I could have been in another life," I said. "If I'd had someone to believe in me." The retrospective ran for 6 months. It broke attendance records for a living artist. My work was now selling for 8 figures. My most recent piece went for $12 million at auction. I was 30 now, successful beyond my wildest first life dreams, featured in textbooks, studied in art schools, collected by major museums. And my family? They'd lost their house. My father declared bankruptcy. My mother had to get a job at a grocery store, Scarlett. Gave up on art entirely and moved back in with them, depressed and defeated. I heard all this through my grandmother, who still kept me updated despite my disinterest. "They're very bitter," she told me over lunch one day. "They blame you for not helping them." "Good," I said. "Let them blame me. Let them live with the consequences of their choices, just like I lived with the consequences of theirs." "Do you ever think you'll forgive them?" she asked. I considered the question. Maybe. Someday. When it doesn't matter anymore. When I'm so far beyond them that forgiving them would cost me nothing. And when will that be? "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe never. Maybe I don't need to forgive them to be happy." "No," she agreed. "You don't." We finished our lunch and parted ways. I went back to my studio to the new series I was working on. Larger pieces, more ambitious. I was pushing myself constantly, refusing to rest on past success. Because here's what I'd learned in my 2 lives. Success wasn't a destination. It was a practice. And the moment I stopped working, stopped creating, stopped pushing forward, I'd start sliding backward. I wouldn't let that happen. Not again. Years passed. My career continued its upward trajectory. More shows, more sales, more recognition. I became one of the most expensive living artists in the world. My pieces were in permanent collections at the Met, at MoMA, at the Tate, at the Louvre. I was interviewed for documentaries, asked to speak at universities, invited to serve on boards and panels. I started a foundation to give scholarships to young artists from unsupportive families. I mentored emerging artists, especially young women who'd been told their dreams didn't matter. I built a legacy. At 35, I received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the National Arts Foundation. I was the youngest recipient in the award's history. My acceptance speech was broadcast live. I stood at the podium, looking out at an audience of the art world's elite, and I thought about what to say. When I was 13, I began. My family told me that my art didn't matter, that it was just a hobby, a waste of time, something I should give up in favor of more practical pursuits. They supported my sister's artistic dreams, but not mine. They spent money on her education while telling me we couldn't afford classes for me. They made me feel invisible, worthless, like my dreams were an embarrassment. The audience was silent, listening. I'm standing here today receiving this incredible honor because I decided they were wrong. I decided that my opinion of my own work mattered more than theirs. I decided that I would succeed not to prove something to them, but to prove something to myself, that I was talented, that I was worthy, that I deserved to take up space in this world. I paused, looking directly into the camera. To anyone watching this who's been told their dreams don't matter, you're wrong. Your dreams do matter. Your art matters. Your voice matters. You don't need permission from anyone. Not your family, not your teachers, not society to be an artist. You just need permission from yourself. The applause was deafening. I looked out at that audience, at the people who'd dismissed me, supported me, competed with me, celebrated me. I thought about my family, watching this at home if they were watching at all. I thought about the girl I'd been in both lives, the one who'd died forgotten, the one who'd been reborn and refused to be invisible. And I smiled. Because this, all of this, was mine. Built with my own hands, created from my own pain, achieved despite everyone who'd tried to stop me. This was my revenge, not their suffering, but my triumph. This was my victory, not proving them wrong, but proving myself right. This was my life, second time around, lived fully and completely on my own terms. And it was more than enough. The story ends where it began, in a gallery with my family in tears, but this time, I'm not the one crying. I'm not the one full of regret. I'm not the one who missed everything. They are. And as I watch them realize what they've lost, what they can never get back, what they threw away through their own cruelty and neglect, I feel nothing but peace. Because the best revenge isn't making them suffer. It's living well enough that their suffering becomes irrelevant. It's succeeding so completely that their opinion becomes meaningless. It's building a life so beautiful that you forget they exist. I did that, I won, and that's enough.